everybody, and welcome to another video in IELTS Learning Tips. And today I want to look at writing, and specifically at Task 2 writing. And I want to give you 5 things that I think will help you to be more effective in your Task 2 writing. So remember, there are links below where you can get more information from me and find out more about how you can work with me or the free resources that I offer. One is my website, IELTSlearningtips.com, and the other is my Facebook group, IELTS Band 7 and 8 Success, Tips and Strategies. And there are links there. You just simply need to follow them. So let's think about writing. So writing is probably the one area that takes longest for most students to achieve their band. And so it's quite important that you work at it and that you spend some time trying to perfect it. So here are 5 things that if you're not doing them, I suggest you start doing them as soon as possible, because they will make a big difference to your Task 2. Okay, so let's jump straight in. So, some facts about IELTS writing. It's always the lowest score across the board in the IELTS exam. And the average score of the 3.5 million people, it's probably more than that now, because that figure's from 2018, who take the exam is around band 6. It's somewhere between band 6 and 6.5. So many of you I know will want 7, 7.5, 8. So only a tiny proportion get these bands, which means it will take even more work. It does take longer than the others. So typically I would say listening is the fastest, followed by reading. Speaking depends how much you manage to speak, but writing, I would say for 99.9% probably is the last one to reach the band. And as I said before, because there's only a tiny percentage, I think it's something like 4% who get 8, and it's about, I don't know, 15% or something that gets 7.5. So if you want one of those scores, it's going to take some time and work. A lot of students get stuck at band 6.5. I've spoken to lots of students myself, and I've seen accounts of other students who've taken the exam incredible number of times, maybe 10 times, 20 times, even more than 20 times, and every time they get 6.5. A lot of people say it's IELTS' fault, but I think personally, if you take the exam several times and you're still getting 6.5 in your writing, something's wrong, and it's only something that you can change, because the IELTS is not going to change it for you. You have to look and see what the problem is. This is a problem, and I've met many experts at 6.5. And when you become an expert at 6.5, you need quite a big leap to move that to 7. Okay, I mentioned that before. And I would say it's almost impossible to do it by yourself. Almost. Some people are lucky and might manage it. Some people, if they have long enough, they can do it. But if you want to do it in a reasonable time and you are stuck at 6.5, you need help. Okay, and the 2 things that you need to work on are your overall language level, so i.e. how wide is your vocabulary, how wide is your knowledge of different sentence structures, how many grammar errors do you make. You have to look at all these things because they all count, and it's the accumulation of mistakes and also your interpretation of the question that will stop you from getting anywhere near band 7. Okay, so here are the 5 things. Keywords in the question. Time for planning. And do plan. If you don't plan, it's easy to move away from the question. choosing good linking words and linking words that are appropriate, not repeating the same words, but also the same sentence structures and even the same pattern in your paragraphs, and checking your work to eliminate errors. So all of these things are key to producing a good piece of writing. So firstly, the most important thing is, what are you being asked to do? Is it discuss? Is it agree or disagree? Is it to balance some problems and solutions? Is it to balance some advantages and disadvantages? Or is it to just simply give an opinion? Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to decide. If you get this wrong, and I've noticed in a lot of writings that I've seen recently, people seem to always want to do a discussion. If it doesn't ask you to discuss two sides of an argument, you mustn't do it. Now look at the topic. So once you've decided what you're being asked to do, now look at the topic. And what aspect is it? It's probably not everything you know about the environment or everything you know about education. It'll be one specific aspect. For example, just a couple of days ago, I was working with a student and we were looking at a question on education, and it was talking about international exchanges. And the question itself talked about school exchanges and teenagers. And the student wrote about university and university students. Immediately, that is a problem with task fulfillment, because the question did not ask about university, it asked about school. And it did not ask about students, it asked about teenagers. Well, okay, some students might be teenagers, but the question was specifically about secondary school. And not noticing that could have cost a lot of marks. Okay, then you must decide on your position. So if it's an agree, disagree, which side? Do you agree? Do you disagree? If it's a discussion and you have to decide which side you agree with or give your opinion, you may need to make that decision as part of your planning. Okay, so this is the next stage. So the first bit, you've brainstormed, you know what you have to do, you know what aspect of the topic, you've got one or two ideas. Now you need to plan this out. A brainstorm is not a plan, and planning time is never a waste of time. It helps you to write more quickly and more accurately. And you'll find if you do a good plan or outline, your likelihood of getting a high band is increased. I always plan, and I've mentioned faster and more accurately. The problem is, if you are trying to get your ideas and your language at the same time, there's going to be a conflict. And generally what happens in that conflict is that the ideas start to be more important than the language. And IELTS is a language exam. So the ideas are not so important so long as they fit the question. What's important is not what you say, but how you say it. So your focus should be on language as you write. And that's why it's important to get the ideas out of the way in your plan and decide on them. And then focus on language, on vocabulary, sentence structure, linking words, etc. That's where you should be thinking as you write. And if an idea pops into your head halfway through the writing, just ignore it. It doesn't matter. If you've already got your ideas in the plan, stay with them. If you start changing direction in the middle, it will be a disaster. Okay, and the next one is about linking words. Linking words are important to relate sentences one to another. They're also important for introducing new ideas. And they help you to manage cohesion. If you don't link your sentences together, you'll end up most likely with just a list of points about the topic. And linking words are also a way of creating more complex sentences, which are a must for Band 7 and above. So work on these. Try and create a bank of linking words and devices that you can use without error, and then try and reuse them in your writing so that when it comes to the exam, you already know what kinds of sentences you want to use. Okay, the same with devices. So things like conditional sentences, things like not only, but also, these kinds of devices. Okay, and then the ones you use well, the ones that you don't make mistakes with, are the very ones you should be using in the exam. Repetition doesn't just mean repeating the same word. It can also mean repeating the same sentence type. So for example, if you use the subject-verb sentence type over and over and over, your writing will be quite repetitive. You need to use different sentence structures. So perhaps some that start with participles, or perhaps some that use gerunds, same as a participle. But there are different sentence types that you can use, and you need a variety of these as well. So it's not just about repeating the same word. You need to find ways of saying the same thing. Now, if you look online, you may find on a grammar site some what they call transformations, which is where they give you a sentence and they ask you to transform it into a different type of sentence that says the same thing. These are often in language exams, particularly the other Cambridge exams like First Certificate, Proficiency, Cambridge Advanced. So if you are not sure how to do this, if you go online and find some examples of those kinds of transformation sentence exercises, it will give you an idea of how to do it. Okay, you need to do this in both tasks, because both 1 and 2 do have periods where you need to say the same thing in a different way. Okay, so it's not just about synonyms. And think also, if you're stuck and you can't think of a different word or a synonym, think about how you can change it. So if you've got a noun, can you change it into a verb? Or can you make it an adjective, and that will give you a different type of sentence too. And this kind of flexibility of using the same word in different ways is also quite a useful thing, and the examiner will like to see that flexibility. Okay. And then the final thing, do find time to check your work. So 10 minutes planning, and then maybe 5 minutes at the end to check your work, and then the bit in between is for your writing. And you should be able to manage that if you've done a good plan. Okay, sending simple errors that you could correct is ridiculous, and it's just giving them to the examiner and saying, here, you know, dock some points. When you do your writing, make your checking and your planning part of your practice. You should know some of the mistakes you make. All students, in my experience, when I say, you've made this mistake, they say, oh no, I keep making that mistake. You'll know those mistakes you keep making, and those are the ones you should check first. Try to focus on those as you write. So if you have a problem with, say, missing articles, every time you write a noun, think for a second, do I need an article? Which one do I need? Or if you have a problem with subject-verb agreement, which is another common error, think for a second, have I got a plural subject or a singular subject? Which verb, part of the verb, do I need? If you can get used to doing this as you write, you will eliminate a lot of errors. When you check, you skim. You have to skim through your work. So skimming's not just about reading, it's also about reading your own work, checking for errors. But if you planned it well, then you really will find that there won't be as many mistakes. So these techniques are key. And if you're looking for Band 7 and 8, you're in a minority if you get it, but they will all help you to make sure that you do. Okay, so I hope that you'll try and use those techniques and put them into practice. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.